idea that no matter what, it's possible. Balance is having a rich inner life.
What is success to you?
Inner peace. I have a situation that I can't control, and it's all of them. I try not to fight with ghosts, and I try to think of the very best case scenario.
A real strong relationship with someone is being able to be a mirror. I'm not gonna spend any more time with that person, like why? And then I started to realize whatever that person is doing that triggers you, there's the lesson. On this episode, we're going to be talking to the president and CEO of Sony Music Publishing, Latin and U.S. Latin, a Latin Billboard power player who has led his company to a record-breaking 19 ASCAP Publisher of the Year award, therefore turning Sony into the #1 publisher in Latin music. He's not only an accomplished executive, but also a Latin Grammy-nominated composer and pianist. He's worked with Camilo to Daddy Yankee. He's worked with them all. Jorge Mejia, welcome to You Versus You.
Thank you.
I'm excited to have this conversation because I get to have the privilege of being your friend beyond just colleagues at work. But to start it, what is success to you?
Inner peace, having enough, right? Inner peace.
So what do you think enough looks like?
I have no idea.
Isn't that crazy? That's the journey of finding out what life is, you know? I find that so particular, especially in our business, because we live what people consider success in such a, I don't know if this is the right word, but it's such a flamboyant way, right? Because like our business is showmanship and concerts, and we get to experience these things people pay thousands of dollars for. So to them, you know, and they're successful businessmen that you don't know who they are. They're, you know, they make the cups for Starbucks, or they make the toilet paper. So there's not flashy or anything, but our business is the taking the picture with the artist, is going to the concert, is getting awards in front of really powerful people. So it's a flamboyant type of way of showing success. And so for a long time, my journey led me to a place where I was like, okay, that's what success looks like. The more plaques I have on my walls, the more kind of money, or the more cars, or the more watches, or the more blah, 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 and so on and so on. Redefining that success for me has I think been kind of the biggest lessons I'm currently in, you know, readdressing what that means as a human while maintaining drive necessary to move this machine that I called my business, right? I want to take it all the way back to the beginning. Tell me about your childhood.
Well, I was born in Colombia, and I lived there with obviously my mom and dad. Dad was in finance; he was a banker, and mom was a singer-songwriter. And I like to think that I got the best of both of them, right? I got the numbers from dad and the whole creative aspect from my mom. I came to the States when I was about 13, and coming here was the best thing ever for me. It was a really wonderful place to come. And I came to Miami, actually, when Miami was kind of the provinces before Miami was Miami as it is now. And throughout my life, it was all about music, really. There was always music. Through my mom and through my brothers. I mean, it was always in the house.
At what age did like music find you?
I would say that it wasn't a particular age that it found me. It was just, there was no question that music was going to be part of my life somehow.
Would you say that at home, dad's banker mentality was primary, or was it more your mom's free spirit artist, creator?
So dad died when I was 9, and right up until he died, I was with him. So it was very much pragmatic, structured life. And then when dad died, I went to live actually with mom, and then it was more artistic. And I think that's a good thing, because then it allowed me to explore both worlds. So I grew up literally with both in key formative phases of my life.
I can relate to that. You know, I grew up with my mom, who was very much outgoing, minister, pastor, go-getter, well put together at all times. Um, but I always felt that I had the spirit of my father because growing up, especially my first, I'll say my formative years as a kid, was really around someone who just like super passionate about cars and super passionate about anything he did, but it was all driven by passion. It was not like this necessity to be the best or have to be competitive. It's just like this passion driven man. And when I came to the States, which I want to, ask you about this too, because for me it was a huge change. Right? Like coming from Colombia where I felt that you know, life was a little bit more calm. I had a lot, even though the country was going through a lot. Um, you got used to having assistants and having a maid, and you had a driver. And I went to a private school, and then coming to Miami, and we moved into a one-bedroom apartment, and all of a sudden I get thrown into ESOL classes, and I'm definitely I'm blonde at that point. I have massive blonde hair. And the shock to me was like really hard. I remember seeing my teachers and the way they would speak to kids and not being able to communicate it with my classmates at first, while also being a little scared. Did you feel that coming into like that transition from everybody speaks Spanish, everybody is kind of like culturally very similar to all of a sudden, the cluster of Miami culture?
Absolutely, but it was slightly different because before coming to Miami, I spent 1 year in Spain. We went from Colombia to Madrid, and that was the culture shock for me. You know, you would think that speaking Spanish, all of us, we would speak the same language, the same thing. Spanish, I like to say, is the common language that separates us because essentially that was not the Spanish that we spoke. From Colombia, Bogota, we're very proper, we're very, very educated, we're very nice, right? We're right. And then you get to Spain and people are like, buenos dias, ¿qué tienen de buenos? They're like really harsh, right? And you're like, you think that they're actually like mad at you a lot of times. So that's when I went through all of that. I felt completely out of my element. I wasn't sure like what was going on, but it was in Spanish, which was ironic, right? My good friend at that time was an American kid who was kind of going through the same thing. And after that year was up, we came to Miami, and I just felt, this is home. Weirdly, I had also been in a British school since I was very little.
Got it.
In Colombia, so I basically spoke the language when I got here, so that helped.
And where was music in all this? Like when I got in and I discovered Michael Jackson, I was like, I still remember that video of him jumping off the stage with the jetpack. And I was like, what am I seeing? This is like, so that impacted, I think, a huge part of my motivation and my drive for where I am today in music was like that awe of, wow, you can shock a lot of people and have this incredible level of music, which to me, Michael Jackson at that time was everything. But then there was hip hop, and then there was, Latin music. Where was music in your life at this point?
So mom was obviously a singer-songwriter, so she had an album out in Colombia and this whole thing, and she would always be playing guitars, and so was my sister and two brothers. They were always singing and so on. So that was that. But I remember actually in Spain, we went to a classical music concert, and I can't tell you what piece it was. I don't know what it was. All I know is it was these beautiful strings, and I remember just being transfixed at that moment. And I thought, this is it. I absolutely love this. And it's funny because I saw that, I was transfixed, all this, but nothing happened really. I wasn't playing piano then. I wasn't doing anything with that. I was playing tennis, of all things. And it took me getting back here, coming to Miami, breaking my leg, not being able to move for like 6 months to really start playing the piano. And
at what age was this?
15. 15 was, which is super late for playing the piano. When
did you feel like at that point that you had the dream of being an athlete, or what was 15-year-old Jorge dreaming about?
15-year-old Jorge was trying to come to terms with still having lost his dad when he was young, moving to Spain and not really understanding anything about that culture at the time, and then coming here and trying to make sense of what I wanted. I loved playing tennis, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. Once I found the piano, once I connected to the music that had always been in our house, that's when I was very clear that that was the life for me.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of You Versus You. If these conversations are inspiring you and are bringing value to your life, please make sure to subscribe, join the community, and don't forget to share with anyone who you think needs to hear this. Thank you for supporting the show. Now let's get back to our episode. So right when you found the piano, you felt like, okay, I can, this is the dream. I can go into music. I want to go into music. Or was it still something that you felt it was a hobby, but?
Oh, no. I started practicing 8 hours a day, literally. I mean, that's all I did for, I don't know, like 10 years. I mean, for a long time.
Yeah.
And I was lucky to go to, I was lucky to find a teacher, because you always get that. There's a guy named Bill Dawson who, when I had just started playing the piano, he took me under his wing. He got me into New World School of the Arts. 6 months of playing, he got me into the school. And that school, for those of you who don't know, you get to do your academics in the morning, and then you do your art in the afternoon. It could be visual art, it could be dancing, it could be whatever. And so I got to, from like 2 p.m. on, I got to just play piano.
Do you feel like playing the piano was an escape to all the emotion that you were dealing with at 15?
It was the perfect representation of all the emotion I was dealing with. Yeah, 100%.
So I find like music for me at that point in my life was like the only thing that felt like a teacher to me almost, right? Because I had been away from my father. My mother, very different than our lifestyle in Colombia, was having to work all the time, right? To pay the bills here. And so I would come home, I'd put the Hot Pockets in the microwave, and then it was like completely watching BET 106 and Park and hip hop, and it became such a huge part of my identity, because I started to find things that resonated with my creativity, right? I started to find sneaker culture and was like, oh wow, this is something. I started to find this idea of like coming from nothing and making it, like the coming to America moment, right? And then I started to really feel like whatever I wanted to do, I just wanted to be the best, because there was Michael Jordan, and then there was Michael Jackson. And it was like the impression that they were making on me as a kid growing up, which I would also say set the bar so high for what I thought, my life would ultimately become, right? And do you feel that at that point, knowing what it took, you're putting 8 hours into the piano, right? As so many other artists put hours and hours into the music, but there's a certain freedom you have when you first start where you're not necessarily thinking all the way that the result is so hard, because it seems possible. You're like, I remember I used to tell my mom, oh yeah, I'm going to do all these things. Even like, I'm going to be able to buy these cars and I'm going to be able to do all these things, because it just, the structure of adulthood, of saying something is scary or it's not going to be doable, seems to be way less when you're a kid, right? Do you feel that, did that drive you, or were you really just passionate at the moment of just like discovering music for the first time at this level?
The best thing about being 15 is that you're fearless. No one has said anything to you yet as to why you can't do what you can't do, or why these things are not going to happen, or they're not possible, whatever. You are just simply looking at the things that you love and going for them full steam, right? That's such a amazing energy. And the hard thing in life is to sort of hold on to that, because we all have that, don't we? We all have those things that we felt amazingly alive about when we were that age, that there were no bounds. It was completely reachable. That was the idea. So yes, the answer is yes.
How has that changed as you've reached success in career and age?
Well, it's funny. There are times in life will beat you up. So, you'll have moments where reality sets in. And I think the idea is to always try to get back to the idea that no matter what, it's possible, and you can do it. And as far as I may be at some level, at whatever level I am, career-wise and piano-wise, music-wise, and so on, but you're always looking for the next thing and the next thing. It's really interesting how that works.
How do you feel you connect back to that kid, right? Because as parents, and I know we both have beautiful young ones. Yeah, we could package them. Every time I see her, I see this freedom where she's just walking. She doesn't care if she eats and is dirty. Like it's just freedom. Um, but as an adult, find it sometimes really hard to come back to that freedom as a child, right? Because we have responsibilities, we have things that we are scared to lose. Like what has helped you, or how have you struggled with kind of finding that inner you and getting that freedom in the things that you are passionate about?
Having a baby for people who are driven kind of brings you and connects you back to a simpler time, a simpler you. And that's kind of what gets lost among the drive, the desire, the wanting to do this, accomplish that. I think children have that sense of complete possibility. And it's super hard as a parent who's like, no, don't mess this up. And it's hard, but it's beautiful, right? Because they're connected. They're 100% connected, and you just want to be connected that way. And you lose that a little bit along the way, don't you? Right?
Yeah, you know what I found, and it's funny because it's you versus you, is that I found that we parent ourselves the same way we try to parent our kids. So we're like, don't do that. Don't be like, you're gonna get hurt. Don't. But why you do that? Can you stop jumping around? Can you stop being this? Can you stop doing this? Because we're viewing what they're doing from our filter as adults, right? And it just hit me the other day. I was like, oh my God, I am parenting myself. Like I am legit telling myself these same things. Like, don't don't do that. Like you're gonna get hurt. Don't jump and take that risk or do this. Or like, I could be having a beautiful smile and enjoying the day, and it's like, hey, stop, you're gonna look corny. Like, yeah, you're gonna stop jumping around. People don't do that. Like, and I find that we tend to do that as adults. We tend to tell ourselves these things, and continuously, even when we find these moments of freedom, we want to try to put them back in the box.
I think one reason why people connect with some of the artists that we work with is because somehow or another, these artists are able to find that inner joy in what they do and express that and connect people to that. And that's a gift. And that's difficult if you're trying to do it. It just happens. So yes, we're always trying to parent ourselves, and ideally, as we do the things that we love, we lose some of that.
Do you feel a lot of it is, in your case, in your personal experience, is it fear of what others will say, or is it fear of maybe messing up and losing something you've accomplished, or losing something that you've worked so hard for?
Hmm. Well, we live in a very connected society, right? So anything you do and everything you say can will be used against you in all sorts of ways. So there's definitely a concern about making sure that you are um, careful with what you're putting out there. And it's also obviously we've worked hard, Lex, both you and I, and I love my life, you love your life, and obviously it is a fear of something happening that could get in the way of that for sure. Yeah.
Do you think that that's also maybe what stopped the artistic and led you into a business career?
No, I made a very clear choice when I was when I was growing up. I was clear that I wanted to have a certain um, comfort in my life, just because when Dad died, things got kind of interesting in that way, as far as money and things like that. And it was and it made it clear to me that I wanted to not suffer in that way. So that was important to me. I think the best life is the life where I have achieved that, and then I also get to express myself creatively, which is what I'm doing, which is what I'm working on.
Do you feel like, as a guy speaking, your father passing away also, or in my case, just my father not because it was his choice, but just life situations. Do you feel like you had the pressure of like having to step up and be the man of the house?
I was too little. And my mom is a tough woman. So she took charge of a lot of things. As much as she was, bohemian and whatever, she took charge of a lot of things. So no, I didn't have that pressure, but I'm guessing you did.
Yeah. Yeah, quite. I mean, my mother did the same. She took it on, but it was almost the need to, for me, I think it was more internal. It was the need to supplement this void that I had. And I was trying to find where the void was coming. I think I was too young to understand that it was like, not having, especially because I grew up with my dad and it wasn't, I didn't have a tragic situation. It was just life meant it to be this way. So I was looking for that reconnection in a way while dealing with a whole new country and dealing with a whole new understanding while trying not to get bullied at school, because I went to some school that was like definitely in the hood, and I would see these kids getting bullied and I was like, oh, yeah, that cannot be me. You know what I mean? That would look like it hurt. And so it was a lot of trying to find that connection or that definition of who was I supposed to be as a man, because I have a really strong mother, but it was definitely, female energy led. And it's interesting because, coming into that, having our moms step into it as our examples, as go-getters, because my mom was definitely a hustler and she definitely brought the bread home. But it also led to a huge part of why I think I said I need to go do something, right? And my mother, when every night I would go to sleep, she would say to me, don't forget, you're incredible. You're great.
Mm.
And she made me say that. And I started to believe that, and I would say the young Lex was very much driven by this idea that my mom said, okay, you're great. So I would approach every situation as, I'm great. I am going in with everything that I have. And we were talking prior to starting our conversation here, maybe a couple of days ago, my staff showed me a video of me at 21 years old. I had hair, and I had a nice little fro. It was waving with the wind. But the thing that was shocking to me about that video was this young kid who stood in front of that camera and was fearless. I mean, I went in there and I was like, yo, what's up? This is CEO Lex, and you better sign up to the Dream Big Hustle Hard showcase, because if you don't, you're not gonna make it. And if you sign up, I'm gonna make you a superstar. And I was like, oh, it's like one of those where you're like cringe, you're like, but it was also like heartfelt, because I was like, oh, what happened to that kid, right? Like there was this fearless energy that kid had looking at that camera, 20 something years ago, and he wasn't shaky. He wasn't like in disbelief. He didn't care. I mean, that kid didn't even have the power to make someone a superstar, but he really believed it. And I found myself as an adult having the power to make a superstar, but not having the same fearless attitude to be able to go on camera and say, like, or post my opinion in that same way. And ultimately, that's what led me to become an executive and move away from being the artist or the creative or and for a huge part, even though my creativity was coming out through what my manifestation through their clients, there was a sense of safety I felt from being behind the camera and away from the critique of people, right? Do you feel, and you said you made a very conscious decision to become an executive, essentially, because you wanted stability. You were in a rock band as well. So what was that point? What was the point where you're like, I'm in a rock band, I'm in? What was the change, the pivot, the plot twist that led you to this career you have now?
So first of all, this is why I admire so much the people we work with, because they have the single-minded, crazy belief and focus to go for their dreams with no backstop, no anything. That's it. That's incredible. For me personally, yeah, I had a rock band, and there was a choice where we would go on tour, and I don't know where we're gonna stay, but it's okay. You know, I don't know where we're gonna eat, but it's fine. We'll figure it out. And 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 then the possibility of doing a job as starting out at Sony. And you know what? I enjoyed the executive part because there's a big part of me that likes numbers and likes all the things that we have to do and deal with. And that part needed to get developed, I think, for me personally as an artist, so that down the line I could have that to draw on. That was just my journey. But that was that moment when I made that decision. And it's so far it's worked out pretty good. And I don't think I would be the same musician I am now, obviously, if I hadn't done that. It's possible that I would have done the rock band thing, and who knows what would have happened there? Who knows? But I don't know that I would be playing my first piano concerto with the London Symphony like I did last year. You know, I don't know if that would have happened, and I'm very happy that that happened.
You know, it's pretty funny to, again, be an artist and have that desire, and then also like kind of juggling the executive. 'Cause to your point, I ended up enjoying what I do. Right? I enjoy closing the deal, and I enjoy that, and I find myself like having days where my adrenaline is through the roof, and I'm like, yes, I'm like in that point. But then at some point, I hit that wall, and frustration starts kicking in a little bit. And I was sitting the other day with a close friend of ours that is also a major executive, and he was saying that the only time he really gets jealous of anyone is not other executives, it's not people getting, you know, having more number ones. It's when he goes to a studio to work with an artist that's signed to him, and he sees the producers producing because he started as a producer, right? And so there's that moment where you're like, damn, like I kind of want to do that. Like I wish I was there sitting, right? Do you ever feel that, like, as you see, you know, a lot of the things that you sign here are now more contemporary and building as that's where the industry has moved. But whenever you go to a concert of classical music, you go to an opera, you know, I was at Andrea Bocelli yesterday, and I sit there once and I was like, oh my God, I wish one I could do that because that's next level talent. But you sit there and like, how many musicians must be watching this and being like, wow, you know, like I'm a little jealous. Do you ever get that sense of, you know, when you go to one of these events that maybe you would be willing to give your current career to be an Andrea Bocelli, regardless of the money?
You know, you always feel that jealousy, but I don't know if it's jealousy, but it's that drive. You know, you see these people doing the things that you dreamed about doing, and you want to do it. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you know you will. And how that's going to look, I have no idea. But I'm clear that it's going to happen. I'm going to make sure that it happens at whatever level that I can make it happen. That's what it's going to be, and I'm telling you, it's going to be a great level because that's what we've been trained to do as executives. Funnily enough,
Do you feel like, and we were having this conversation earlier as well? It's like, when is it enough? Is it ever enough?
that's right. No, I don't. I haven't found that. That's the one thing, right? If you had asked me 25 years ago, like, oh, you're going to be doing, if you asked me, would you feel complete doing what you're doing, having the life that you have, traveling where you travel, all these things, I would be like, oh my God, sign me, I'm done. You know, I don't, that's it. I can just go to sleep. I'm done. But no, you get to your life and you're just always wanting the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. I think that's healthy. That's being human. That's part of who you are. And I think that's part of also people who are successful in whatever level of success they are, that they're always looking for the next thing. Don't you agree?
You know, it's interesting. If you would have asked me 7 months ago, I would have been like 110%. I want to eat the world. And I don't think my desire to eat the world has changed, right? Um, I think that the notion that I need it in order to be fulfilled has changed,
Yeah.
you know?
That's healthy. That's healthy of you.
It's, you know, I just found myself in a place of success. Um, I found myself in a place where I was like, okay, you know, Can I always buy more things? Yes. Can we always have a bigger company? Yes. But
how many steaks can you eat, at the end of the day?
but at what
It's like,
well, at what point is it enough? Right? At what point is, and again, it's not the letting go of the drive, right? Because I think if you let go of the drive and your purpose, you kind of die. Like I say that life is school. You're in the curriculum of life, and part of going to school is like if you went to school every day and nobody was teaching you anything, you get bored really quickly. Part of the struggles of going to school, even the classes you didn't like and the ones you loved, was like that's the challenge. That's what made it like even if it was just about getting a girl or like going to school or hanging out with your friends, like the mix of emotions, like you said, it's humanity. That's what being human is. But I found myself in a place that I was like, so many of our peers have, ended their lives or in a tragic way in search of happiness and supplementing kind of that whole internally, regardless of the amount of success, right? I was watching the Avicii documentary and it really broke my heart because he was a kid who was doing incredible things, but the pressure of achieving this dream you always wanted also comes with the realization that everything you thought was going to be the solution to all your struggles is not going to be it. And so I found myself in a very unique situation where it was like, great, I have the company, I have money, I have these things, people think of me as successful, but until when is enough? Because I'm tired of the lifestyle, right? And that's part of the thing that I think has really helped launch this idea of a podcast was we get caught up in the lifestyle of the music industry, right? The chase of it, because it's like the lottery. I explain to people, this is like going to Vegas every day. Like you're literally, you could sign something and tomorrow it could flop, or you could sign it and become the biggest artist in the world and all of a sudden you hit the jackpot. But I really found myself in a place where it was like, when is it enough? And at what point am I going to stop my internal suffering because of the, you know? And I was sharing with you the other day, someone told me, you've been programmed to be a wave. You've been told your whole life you have to have power and movement and direction and clarity and vision and work your ass off 8, 10, 12 hours a day, because if not, you're not going to make it. And he said, but the problem with the wave is it knows it's going to break. Now, it doesn't know if it's going to break in the ocean. It doesn't know if it's going to break in the sand, but it knows it's going to break. And so at that point, the wave starts getting anxiety. Because, well, am I going to like be again? Am I going to be big enough? Am I going to come into the sands with enough power? Is someone going to actually like surf on top of me, or I'm just going to be the wave that nobody paid attention to? And he said something to me. He said, but in that moment is when you got to realize you're the ocean. And you can make another wave. And so part of my journey and part of the concept of you versus you is how to get ourselves to a place where we understand we're the ocean, so that we're not so driven by the wave that we live our lives in this consistent run. Because at some point, your body, the mind, all these things give up, right? So it gives out on you. The worldly costume that we wear will get tired and you get old and opportunities dry out and you retire from your job. And I think about that as a father too, right? Because I'm like, I spend so much time working and the time flies by. She went from being this little baby that I had to carry all the time to now like kicking me in the face when she's sleeping. Like it's just like, would you say that for you, part of what you're doing at this stage in your career and your life is trying to find that rhythm between your passion and love for music, your family, the work? Or do you feel that you are at a place where you're settled in and you are at a state where you feel in rhythm, as I say, because I don't believe in balance, which we'll get to after?
I am still searching for the rhythm that balances the pulling of family work and creative work. But I think you hit on something very important. We are going through a mental health crisis in many respects. There have been people who have ended their lives in our industry who were very successful outwardly. And it makes you pause and think about what's important and so on. So I think, at least for me, the important aspect of maintaining a healthy balance is having a rich inner life. And for that, I've done this for I'm not saying I'm there, but I'm saying that it's very useful for me. I meditate every day. I do yoga every day, a little bit of yoga, meditation. And that has helped very much with that struggle. Now, am I in the middle of the struggle? Yes, I definitely still am. And I think it's because there's a lot of things happening right now. There's career, there's family with a young daughter, and there's the creative pursuit. So it's a lot of things happening at the same time. And obviously we're out of balance from time to time, a lot. and but having a rich inner life that allows you to center every day, at least once a day, is key and crucial. If I didn't have that, I think I would have spun out of control a long time ago.
I found myself many times sitting in my office and saying, if this was all gone, will I be okay? Will I consider myself successful? Or would the demise or the sale or whatever it is of my business mean that I was any less successful than I was yesterday? Do you find yourself at any time as you've, ran the number one company in music publishing in Latin music, do you ever find yourself in that state where you're like, what if this is all gone tomorrow?
I don't think about that really. Maybe on purpose, I don't think about that. Do you identify your self-worth with your success, right? I think the inner life work is essential. And I think that if you had asked me 10, 15 years ago, the answer would have been yes, this is who I am and so on. But now I think it's more of, it's funny. I feel now I have much more internally to be okay with some catastrophe, to make do with less. But paradoxically, that allows you to create more. Does that make sense? But it wasn't always that way at all. And I'm not saying I'm anywhere near where I feel at peace and so on. But that's the struggle, and that's the journey. That fear might be there, but I don't address it, because the internal work, I try to focus on the best case scenario of all of the options. That has been integral to my life. Whenever I have a situation that I can't control, and it's all of them, I try not to fight with ghosts, and I try to think of the very best case scenario, and I try to vibrate with that, if you will. Not always successful, but that's the idea. And that's what I try to give energy to, that very best case scenario.
Yeah, for me, it's that notion of, and the realization that I'm okay no matter what.
Yeah.
Right? That's been the biggest breakthrough in my work, has been that I am already great. I am okay no matter what. I get the blessing of having a driver during my weekdays. And I realized the other day, as I was sitting in the back of my car driving, looking out, it's like, life's a lot better as a passenger. It's a lot better as someone that you can enjoy the view. And I was programmed my whole life that was not the way to be successful. The way to be successful was, you better take the bull by the horns, right? The famous bull in Wall Street, and you better
drive a car,
right? And while a lot of that really led me to where I am today, I suffered it all the way over here. And I've realized, to your point of, you don't actually control any of the situations, right? Like I I believe that our work is the understanding that the universe is in divine order, right? It's in this perfection of alignment that causes us to meet and connect with certain people and move things. And I would have never thought I would be back in Miami. Like all these things that you just can't control in life just happens to find its perfect and its divine order into it. So my work has taught me now to learn to be still instead of having to be the driver all the time. Is to learn to be still. I say be still enough to listen, and then be courageous enough to act. But the figuring it out of how things are going to happen or when or how and how I can, that's the part that I'm learning to let go. Because I've realized that there's times, and we talk about this in music, there's times where we put all our efforts into an artist. I mean, every marketing idea, every dollar, every spent, everything, you give it your whole attention, it still fails. And then there's things that you just do passionately and you kind of just said, well, I don't really know if this is going to work. Like our work with Caliucci, where it was like, we'll do the album, we'll put it out because we're starting out and this kind of, nobody really knew who Caliucci was. I mean, she had a strong fan base in her kind of niche world, but even, I'll be honest, I didn't know who she was before the project got presented to us. But then I remember getting the phone call when Telepatia blew up and became a massive, and it was just an influencer. And so you're like, I could have spent all the money marketing and I still now had that, right? And I say this to artists a lot because a large part of it is just letting the vessel flow and create the art because you love it, because the rest of the things are so out of your control. And while you have to be a good shepherd and discipline and do the things that I think are still essential parts of, working, everything's out of your control. So I've started, a huge part of my work has been just letting it go. And just in the midst of like the struggle or the stress or whatever the moment is, being able to say, I'm okay.
That's the hardest thing for control freaks. Like I think you and I.
Yeah. Do you feel that at this point in your career, you're still driven by competition? Still driven by needing to kind of be number one by all means?
I may have I may have had some success, right, in what I do, but I certainly think that there's a lot more things that we can do as a company, and certainly as a creative force, as an artist. So yeah, but it's not so much about what the other person, the other company, or whatever they're doing. It's really about what the bar is. What you were talking about, the Michaels? Same thing. My bars are way up there as to what I want to achieve. So that's the competition that I'm definitely driven by.
Will you say that based on that, right? Based on having to look at that, are you looking at people, you're looking at numbers, or you're looking at a self goal, right? Is it like inspired by being Andrea Bocelli or whoever that reference is as a classical pianist? And forgive me for my lack of classical music knowledge. Is it driven by numbers? Is there a number attached to, I want my career to make me X millions of dollars? Or is it completely driven by maybe even the fear that if it don't get there, your full purpose wasn't reached?
No, it's driven by this. I don't know where it comes from, but this need to share a certain part of myself with people, and hopefully people will resonate with it. That then allows me to create a life where I don't worry about the numbers, where I don't have to worry about it, right? And where I'm able to continue sharing that. And ideally, hopefully, it makes for a better world. I know this sounds like a lot, but it's true. I mean, ideally, that leads to a better place for all of us. And don't ask me where that need comes from, but it's there. I mean, I'm gonna be I told you I'm gonna be recording next week in London the next a bunch of other pieces that are gonna part of the project that I'm doing. And I was practicing today. My wife and daughter were in the pool. What need do I have to do that, right? I really don't. have a need to miss time with my daughter, my wife, but I do. It's there. It's intrinsic, and it sometimes it's a demon that drives you, sometimes it's an angel that drives you. But at the end of the day, it's a desire to be seen and to share with people. And I think we all share that. We all have that, and that's part of being human once again, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's something beautiful about the fact of community, right? Like we need community. Like you need the sharing of energy. You need the sharing of appreciation. And I was sharing with you the other day that, you know, one of the things I've learned about building a real strong relationship with someone is being able to be a mirror and be able to be every sense of a mirror, right? Be able to be the guy that says, hey, look at yourself, you're doing great. Be able to look in the mirror and say, hey, buddy, this could have been better. You could do best. But most importantly, to be able to take things out of you that you might not notice, that my way of being triggers. And that concept is something I had never understood before, right? Like when somebody pissed me off or somebody's annoying, my first reaction was like, cut them out. I'm not gonna spend any more time with that person. Like, why? And then I started to realize whatever that person is doing that triggers you, there's the lesson. There's something in that is affecting you that has a lesson tied to it.
It's the concept that whatever it is that you don't like in somebody else lurks within you, and that's why it's triggering you, and that's the gift, and that's the idea of living life, taking 100% responsibility for everything that comes your way, which is one of the things that has helped me a lot. Everything that happens, take 100% responsibility for it, because in some way it has been created by you, and it's there for a higher purpose, if you will.
How do you use that in leadership? What would you say your style of leadership is?
I like to think that I allow people to work until I don't feel comfortable. If I don't feel comfortable, then I become a pain. I get really nitpicky. But if I feel comfortable, I like to think that people can work absolutely freely and do what they need to do because we know what the goals are.
And this is, you know, you've obviously lead this major corporation that is huge in size compared to our beautiful boutique company here. But I think that's one of the biggest struggles I've had as a leader, right? I think I create the runway for this freedom of creation, but it also creates a fear in me of sometimes people can't reach the expectation of freedom because they need, you know, some people are really good at, you got to tell them, take that here and go here. If you tell them pain freely and don't worry, I'll frame it later, it's like the wiring goes. And then I become like you. Then you become like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, I become strictly on it. But my whole life, that frustration that I get because I see things, or I see the world as limitless, I started to find it really hard to find people who vibe within my energy, right? Within how I create. And when I understood the concept of the mirror, I started to notice something about myself. And it was the need to be the savior, right? The need that if you struggle on something, part of my leadership is to come save you. The person I do my work with told me, no one needs saving, Lex. You're stopping them from learning the lesson. And sometimes that lesson is you firing them, because if you try to save them, they don't learn the lesson from you. And then they'll spend their whole lives looking around, having to relive the same lesson because you saved them from that one time that they could have learned it the hard way. And in understanding that, it also freed me a bit to say, okay, let them mess up. Let them put And then I started to struggle with like, well, what's the boundary of enough mess ups, right? What's the boundary of like, okay, strike two, strike three, strike four? You know what I mean? Like at some point, you have to have guidance and say, hey, you didn't achieve the goals you were given, and you might hate me for this, but I gotta have a healthy boundary. Do you find yourself with, especially in a business, I think where so much of the operations of the business are creative led and kind of universe having given you the right time in the right place, right? Because hard to judge sometimes an A&R doing their job with an artist and the artist doesn't become successful. You know, how have you historically dealt with that in our business and with your staff and the team and kind of picking and letting go of people?
I think the hardest thing for me as somebody who leads people and has led people is understanding that not everyone is wired exactly like I am, and being able to see the strengths in having people who are not exactly like I would handle seeing the strengths in people who would handle problems not exactly the way that I would, and seeing that it might be a better way. And that has taken a minute. So I've been able to grow as a leader by being able to appreciate the strengths that are not exactly like what I would be like. I've been lucky to have a good close team that has lasted for a while with me. The people who work with me closely in the Miami office have been, most of them, with the company more than 10 years. And we've all learned from each other because we were completely different people 10 years ago, all of us. I mean, some of them have been there for a very long time. But it's not easy, because as a leader, you also need to adapt to them. What is the judge? What is the line? The budget. We need to make a certain number every year. We need to get to a certain goal, and that's it. We make it, period. And if we ever started not making it, that's when things start happening. But we've been lucky. We've done well.
How do you choose when enough mess ups is enough?
There's no map. There really is no map. It's a point where you know that it's enough because the person is very unhappy, most likely, because the mess ups they come with a cost. They come with an emotional cost. They come with all kinds of costs for you and the team, right? So that person is not happy, obviously. You're not happy. And at some point, behooves you, because it's your responsibility, to make a decision. And it's always better to make a decision than not to make a decision. Whether that decision is the absolute worst, it's better to make a decision than not make a decision. Make a decision and make it right.
Love that. Love that. Now shifting from leadership to your artistry, right? Because I've been preview to a few, very intimate concerts by you. I've been able to like see this excitement. Like there's a way that as your friend you light up when you talk about the music you're making and going into Abbey Road and these things that I love to see as your friend, right? That's the mirror part where I'm like your biggest cheerleader. Tell me about your music. Talk to me about this project. What's exciting? What are the challenges? What are the things that you're seeing? I want to know more because we're going to get to this incredible book that you've published, which I got the blessing of discovering on my own because my friend never told me he had one. And I got to say, I'm so glad I did. It has been an inspiration for even the writing of my own book, for the understanding of storytelling that you did, for how personal you got, but then it was driven by music. So talk to us about your music, your project, and then this book, because honestly, I think it's you know a largely undiscovered diamond that needs the light because it needs the Tiffany display, because it really is incredible. And seriously, congratulations. And kind of mad you never told me about it, but I really enjoyed it. I spent my past 2 nights with it, and I generally enjoyed what it fed to me, you know. And I think so many times when we do this or any creative project, we obviously want the result, but I always say if you just touch one person, that's all that matters. And you really touched me with this, and you've touched me with your music. Honestly, I the first time I saw you play right away, I was like, not only as your friend, but even as a lover of music, just incredible talent you have. So I'll stop talking about all the amazing things you make me feel with your music, but please tell me about these projects you're working on.
Thank you, Lex. Thank you so much for that. Means a lot coming from you. Thank you. So the book that Lex is talking about is a project that I did of 25 short pieces. They initially started their life as piano preludes, and preludes are pieces that you play before the big concert. They're typically pieces that the pianist will use to warm up before the concert. But a lot of composers made sets of them in every key, and they're performed regularly. So a lot of big composers did that. So I wrote a set of 25. There's 24 keys, but I put an extra one in there. And what I did with that is I also wrote for each of the pieces a little chapter, because I think that classical music requires a little bit of, some new classical music requires a little bit of context many times. So the context for these pieces are a little bit of the stories around my life. And basically the music is a representation of those stories. And then I put it in a book format where you read and then you press play and you hear the music. The music that you hear in the book is the orchestral version. So I created those piano pieces and then I orchestrated them. And we've done that in shows. We played it where I'll tell the story and then the orchestra will play. And it's been an amazing reaction every time from the people because they're connected to the music. And thank you. I'm so glad that you found it, and I'm so happy that you enjoyed it. And yeah, the plan is to continue doing it and continue performing that. So that's that project. The next thing that I'm working on, I did a piano concerto that I recorded over in London at Abbey Road with the London Symphony Orchestra. That hasn't come out yet. I'm going next week to finish a couple more pieces to put the whole album together. So that's
so excited. I can't wait. I can't wait to hear it. And I encourage everyone to go listen to the book. You want to give this is the shameless plug you get to put. Tell them the name, how will you find it? Because I want them to find this.
Yeah. So this is a book that's available for Amazon Kindle, or it's an e-reader thing, or Apple iBooks, right? And it's a memoir in music. It's music with stories attached to it.
So you've become an accomplished music executive, accomplished musician. Now here comes the dad question. In your book, I remember the story, and maybe you could tell us again the story when you told your father you kind of wanted to follow this music. Like you were like, you saw, I forgot what was the band that you saw on.
Yeah, it was, I don't know what it was. It was,
you saw a rock band on TV, and you were like, that's what I want to do.
I want to do this. And my dad was like banker, right? And he's like, I'm sure he was like, oh my God.
He's like, that's not going to make any money.
He said to me, as long as you're the best at it, as long as you do the very best you can at it, then it'll be fine.
So as a father, is there a dream for your kid? Is there something you would want them, or something you wouldn't want them to?
So as a father, it all kind of comes into focus. You just want to be happy. And then you realize that being happy doesn't take any of the other stuff that we're all like chasing, right? As a father, you're like, if you have a nice life that makes you happy and makes you fulfilled, I'm going to be good. Yeah, I don't need her to be an Olympic athlete. I don't need any of that as a father. Right? And that's kind of what we need to tell ourselves.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people ask me, would you want your daughter to be in music? Like, do you feel like Jade would be like an amazing musician? And that part of you that have lived the music industry, she's like, oh, no. And then I'm like, honestly, I just want her to just be happy.
Yeah.
And I love that part of the story in the book really touched me, because to be honest, when the story started, I thought he was going to tell you no, son, you got to go run the family business. You got to go, you know. And the fact that he said, just be the best at it. Like, I love that. Like, it was something that I wrote down in my journal, something that I write these notes to Jade every night that I want her to read when she's older. And I wrote that in there. It makes me emotional, but it's really that huge point of being able to tell someone, just love what you do and do it at the best of your ability and not worry about the outside, right? Especially in today's world, you know, when our kids become our age or even, you know, teenagers, God knows where the world will be, but we live in a world filled with the necessity of having to like show it to the world, everything, and you're seeing what everybody else has. So all of a sudden, this anxiety level kicks in. So I love that. I love that, and I love that story, and I think it's something I will take hold as a good teaching to my daughter. You know, as we're coming to this end of this beautiful conversation, what do you want your legacy to be?
So legacy, it's kind of a loaded word, right? It's how do you want your memory to live on, right? When people think about you, what do you want them to think about, right? I would like them to think of me as somebody who championed songwriters and somebody whose music they love to play and listen to, and a good father, good husband. Those are the main things. But I'll be honest, I hadn't really thought about. Wait, I guess at some point you have to think about these legacy questions. But that's the main thing. Somebody who took care of, who helped people achieve their dreams, as we do. Somebody whose music people love to perform and listen to, and a good person for my family.
Love that. So I named the podcast You versus You because I truly believe that our biggest battle is against ourselves, right?
Yeah.
You were saying earlier, like sometimes you get led by the angel, sometimes led by the demon. And I think we both have it both inside, right? We both have this inner struggle that makes it, that is largely shaped by what I believe is our internal filter, right? And our filter is, made out of our trauma, of kind of our life lessons, and definitely fear, right? And that causes us to intake information that is happening to us and process it through that filter and judge it through that filter. And so one of the things that's made me realize is that if I, sit here and tell you I love you, you feel something. If I text you the same, you'll feel something. If I turn around and say, F you, and I text it to you, you'll get surprised. And it made me understand the power of words. But it also made me understand that we talk to ourselves more than we talk to anybody else. And so the stories we tell ourselves are so important to our well-being, so important to breaking through that internal part in order to set ourselves free to enjoy the life we're living, regardless of the circumstances, situations, the people, and so on. So to end this, I wanted to really do a good exercise that we could both do. And the exercise is, what is one sentence that you could tell yourself right now that could be transformative to your tonight and to your rest of the week?
I am happy, I am healthy.
Love that.
Those are the power of the I am statement.
Yep. I am okay and I am fearless.
That's yours.
That's mine. So with that, Jorge, thank you for an incredible time.
Thank you.
I appreciate you coming here, opening up, telling your stories. It's a blessing to have you be a guest in this journey that I've taken the leap of faith with. Thank you to everyone who's been here and got a chance to enjoy this conversation. And till next time.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
Guys, a round of applause for Jorge. Thank you guys for tuning in to You versus You. Please subscribe, like, and share as we build this community and we help each other to live the life of our dreams.